Oh, hey, this is Warren Redlick. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Sunday Live. This is going to be an awkward one. I am getting my stuff together. I am in a new space. I'm going to be here for a month. I had hoped to have this computer up and running in the background there, and I could not get the computer up and running, so we're still on the laptop. At least I got the good microphone. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. So Nomad Philip asks, what's up with the Happy Wanderer? Nomad mode is about to end, or is ending. I'm here for a month, and I've got another place for a couple months, and in the next 3 months I'm going to buy a place somewhere near Canaveral. So that's that quick update. Let's dive into what I've got for you today. So first thing, FSD Beta version 10.69 was delivered to some OG beta testers, including Chuck Cook. Chuck is famous for Chuck Cook's left turn. So Chuck is here. Oh, by the way, I should mention my ocean view. I'm in a beach condo, so... So Chuck, the FSD beta was driven, this update was driven in part by trying to achieve the problem of challenging Chuck's unprotected left turn, and it appears to be doing well. I haven't watched Chuck's video yet, but he says thanks to the hard work it really shows, that suggests it's doing well. Omar Kazi, Holmar's catalog, he did a full drive. I watched some of that. He was very impressed. He felt it was a lot smoother. I did not, even though I have an OG Model 3, I did not get FSD Beta 10.69. I know some other OG beta testers, apparently Brandon and K10 and Lisa Tesla Truth, none of us got FSD Beta 10.69. I'm a little surprised. I'll deal with it. So anyway, it looks like it's a big improvement. It's early yet. There's going to be another version 0.1. There's going to be another version 0.2. It sounds like in September, version 2 is going to go into wide release. That means 10.69.2 will be wide release. Everybody who's paid for FSD will get FSD Beta if they want it. And I want it. So that's just the big news right now, is that it looks like FSD Beta is happening. It looks like it's a big improvement. If it impressed Chuck, Chuck has not been like Omar. If Omar says it's great, Omar always says it's great. I see significant limitations. We'll see what happens. I think there's a lot more to come. So, but if Chuck is impressed, now we'll wait and see. Probably 10.69.1. I'll get it. Lisa will get it. Kristen will get it. Brandon will get it. Lisa is a very, very tough critic of FSD Beta, so if Lisa's impressed, that'll be a good thing. There's not much of a tour, Matt. It's a 2-bedroom condo. The 2 bedrooms are upstairs, 1.5 baths. There's a nice little kitchen. It's got a fair amount of space, great view of the ocean. So maybe I'll do a tour of the space another time, but I'm only going to be here for a month, so I think the experience so far is leading me to believe I'm going to have to get a beach condo instead of... Thought about buying a townhouse with a garage, thought about buying a single family home, but I'm pretty sure I'm buying a beach condo at this point. I like being able to wake up in the morning and sit outside and everything. So, all right, let's go on. This video, I'm gonna focus on some what if questions. I just did a couple of videos. I did a video about my bear case for Tesla. I did not get .69, no. I did a bear case, and by the way, Elon said that the price of FSD is going to rise to $15,000 in September. So if you want FSD, buy it now. I have it on both cars. I have it on my Model 3. I have it on my Model X. I'm already set. I have it ordered on my Cybertruck orders. I have 2 Cybertruck orders. I have FSD hopefully locked in on both of those. What about the picture in the back spilled Coke? I have no idea. I don't know what that picture is. I literally got here yesterday, and I'm still adapting. So I wanted to talk about what if scenarios. So in the end of the last video, I talked about some what if scenarios, and you can check my previous video for that. And I'm going to talk about some more what ifs, and I'd like to hear I'm going to do my locals platform, the Daily Lie. I have some what if questions from there. I have questions from the Patreon supporters, and I have what if questions from YouTube channel members. Normally, I only take questions from channel members. But I think this one I may have opened it up to everybody. So if you'd like to get your questions in early on the live stream, please consider supporting me on the Daily Lie on Locals, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. There's links to all that in the video description below. Easiest way is probably YouTube channel member. My preference is the Locals platform. I'm expecting to ramp up my content on Locals once I get settled here, especially if I can get that computer working, but maybe I have to live without that computer working. So, on the Daily Lie, Swirly asked, can you promote the idea? This is not really a what-if question. I asked for what-if questions, but I'm flexing on this one. I don't know the new price of monthly subscription, no. Am I concerned that Tesla disabled orders for the Semi? No. Can I promote the idea of Elon going on a Jordan Peterson podcast for a long-form discussion? That would be fascinating. According to Peterson, they did have a 20-minute discussion at Giga Texas, but it's fairly casual. So for those who don't know, Lex Friedman just interviewed Jordan Peterson. They talked about Jordan Peterson potentially interviewing Elon. I think it would be a great thing. I think Jordan Peterson is a great interviewer. He asks great questions. He asks a different kind of questions from what you usually see in an Elon interview. It's more about the person, rather. He's not going to ask him about the tech. He's going to ask him about how he manages to achieve everything he achieves, what drives him, what motivates him. That's what my picture. What's Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychologist. He's going to want to dig in and try to understand the psychology that drives Elon. So I'm a huge Jordan Peterson. I'm not saying Jordan Peterson's perfect. I'm not saying Elon's perfect, but Jordan Peterson asks great questions, whether you like him or not. It would be a great interview. I would love to see it. Okay. Amy asks, what if Trump is reelected in 2024? Would this be good or bad? Biden sure hasn't done much of anything. Okay, so I try not to get too political on YouTube. That's the kind of thing I would talk more about on the Locals platform, and maybe I will talk about that on the Locals platform. I don't think that the previous 4 years were bad for Tesla or SpaceX. I think that the previous president was relatively favorable towards Elon and Tesla and SpaceX. He went to a SpaceX launch when they launched crew members to the space station, or I think it was a crew members to the space station launch. He said positive things about Elon. He had Elon on some committee. It wasn't all perfect, and I think Elon left some committee. Elon got frustrated with it. But by and large, I think that administration was relatively friendly. The current administration has been less vocally friendly, but I haven't seen any significant impact in terms of policy from the current administration. I mean, we got problems with like inflation. I think the inflation problems are driven by the previous administration and the current administration, and frankly, it tracks back to George W. Bush and maybe before that. You can go all the way back to the creation of the Federal Reserve. So I think that the idea that whichever person gets elected, whether it's Trump or Biden or DeSantis or Kamala Harris or whoever, ultimately the policies that are going to affect Tesla and SpaceX and Boring Company and Neuralink are probably not going to change a whole lot no matter which president gets in, because the regulatory state tends to run itself. You know, I am concerned that the current administration appointed Missy Cummings to the NHTSA. Missy Cummings, who tweeted that she wanted to punch Elon, and not like a joke punch, like she wanted to knock him out. The rhetoric from the current administration has been very negative towards Tesla, by and large, for pretty much all of it. And that's not good, but I don't think it's had a material impact. I mean, really, the underlying problem is supply chain. And I don't think the current administration has been that good about supply chain, but I don't know that the previous administration was that good about taking measures to protect the supply chain. I think Ron DeSantis and Governor Greg Abbott, the governors of Florida and Texas, their handling of the economy, and several other states have handled their economies much better. And had the federal government follow that approach, we probably would have been done better on supply chain. But really, it's a global problem, so I'm not even sure there. Anyway, I don't... look, the next 2 years or so, we're going to be arguing about the bad orange man, and we're going to be arguing about the doddering old fool in the White House or whatever. And it's not going to, it's going to be entertaining. It's going to get our endorphins going or whatever. It's going to get our brains running. But is it really going to have a significant impact on Tesla or SpaceX or Boring Company or Neuralink? I don't think much. It's very clear from a rhetoric standpoint the Biden administration has aligned itself against Elon. The Democratic Party has aligned itself against success. I'm a registered Democrat, just by the way. I vote in Democratic primaries because where I live or lived, the Democrats win the general election, so your vote in the primary is the only one that matters. I'm a libertarian fundamentally. I identify as libertarian, and I will likely vote for a libertarian in the presidential election unless Ron DeSantis is the presidential candidate, because I love Ron DeSantis. I will see. I'll have to see what happens, but I will probably vote libertarian. In general, I always vote libertarian when I can. But I made an exception for DeSantis in the governor's election, and I feel like it was a really good decision. So if you don't like DeSantis, then we could have a conversation about that. But if you don't like freedom, if you like living in dystopian states, if you like the way that the governments wreck the economy in the dystopian states, okay. But that's too political. I don't like getting that political on this. We can talk about that on Locals later. Nick asks, how many Tesla bots will roam the Earth by 2030? That's a good question. 2030 is pretty far out. It's really hard to predict that curve. I think we're going to see a very small volume of Tesla bots in 2023, like hundreds. And then in 2024, we're going to see thousands and maybe tens of thousands. And then 2025, assuming that Tesla bot starts becoming useful, which is an open question. There's a question about when does Tesla bot become useful, right? When is it able to, and there's a lot of ways that it can be useful. So there's minimally useful, like it can walk around and observe, which can take a security guard function on. But there's like picking up objects and manipulating objects and navigating complex spaces. My guess is we're going to see significant progress on that by the end of 2025. And then bot is going to ramp in 2026, 2027, 2028. And I think we'll see more than 100 million bots by 2030. But this is, it really depends on how quickly that curve ramps up. So what is going on with the Tesla legal team buildup? Good question. We'll see about that. I'm going to come back to questions in the chat later. So it's hard for me to care about much else than bot at this point, as the total potential market size is hilariously higher than that of cars and FSD. Yeah, if you really get into bot, and I don't think bot will reach that level by 2030, but if you look at the potential for bot to basically change the game on labor markets and the economy, and the ultimate cost of a bot is probably going to be less than $5,000. Maybe it's going to cost Tesla $5,000 a bot to make them. Once they're manufacturing at scale, they're making $1 million a year, they're making $10 million a year. It's probably going to cost Tesla less than $5,000 to make them. And the value generated by the bot, once it's minimally useful, it's generating $50,000 a year in value for, say, 10 years. So it costs you $5,000 to make something that generates, $500,000 in value. And as it improves, the cost of making the bot doesn't go up, but the value of the bot goes up a lot. So at some point, the bot is worth $100,000 a year, then it's worth $200,000 a year, and maybe they get it to last longer. So you're talking about nearly infinite value creation, and you just end up with this at what point? And I think actually the bigger issue is less how many bots there will be on Earth, and really more how many bots will there be on Mars. Can I program my bot to be like Robin Williams? I don't think so, but I wouldn't rule that out. That's more of a GPT question, I think. All right, so that was the Locals platform. That was the Daily Lie. Links in the description below. Please support this channel. Please support me on the Locals platform as my preference. But let's talk about Patreon. You can support me on Patreon as well. And I take Patreon, Locals, then Patreon, then YouTube channel member comments. So Jim Knapp says, Hulu has a New York Times video about autopilot and FSD. Elon Musk's crash course. I know you addressed this before. New York Times also has a video on Dr. Joseph Mercola, which is a bit of smear as well. I would say mainstream media generally, including the New York Times, has been ridiculously unfair about autopilot and FSD. I don't know nothing about Joseph Mercola, so I can't comment on that. I don't consider the New York Times to be a reliable source for anything anymore. It's a big disappointment to me that I used to read the New York Times, I used to read the Wall Street Journal, I used to read The Economist, and I found that they were reliable sources of information. And The Economist in particular, I think the Wall Street Journal to an extent as well, even the New York Times, if they had a bias, they would at least give you a fair reading of the other side. And I think we've gotten to a world where they don't give a fair reading to the other side. The New York Times is just completely lost. I don't understand what the hell happened to the New York Times. The Wall Street Journal has been pretty disappointing, especially regarding Tesla and FSD. They got an author named Charlie Grant who routinely trashed Tesla in the past. The Economist used to be very, very balanced. They're not balanced anymore. So it's a really, really frustrating thing to see. The mainstream media has been lost. And the practical reality is it's not a big deal for me because I get a lot of my news on Twitter and on Substack. And there's a lot of great journalists and writers who you can see what they say on Twitter, and then you can find their Substacks. And, you know, even people I don't particularly agree with, like Glenn Greenwald. I'm a big fan of Glenn Greenwald. I completely disagree with him on Israel. But, you know, his writing in general, his coverage of Edward Snowden was brilliant. A lot of what he writes about, he's dealing with some personal issues right now with his husband being very sick. But and please, you know, check out Glenn Greenwald if you haven't read him before. Check him out. Alex Berenson's been really good on COVID on Substack. There's so many good voices on Twitter, and then it's important to read the other side. It's important to read people you disagree with and understand their position because. Look, I'm usually right? I believe I'm usually right, but it's helpful to see what other people say. So let's say Taylor Ogan. I think he finally blocked me, but I was following Taylor Ogan. I think Taylor Ogan has some valid insights on China. I don't know what's going on in China. I like having a good source on China. Unfortunately, I guess I was a little too harsh on Taylor at some point and he blocked me. But, you know, Wu Wa covers what's going on with Tesla Shanghai. I think it's really good to expand the scope of what you're paying attention to. And the mainstream media has just gotten so narrow. So you know, like everything, it's so comical that everything became about the bad orange man. And then it became, there's this, we're on this, I just on Twitter today, I retweeted a thread, quote tweeted a thread from Caitlin Johnstone, who's somebody I recommend as well. Kate Oz, I think, Caitoz. Often disagree with her on substance, on the policy issues, but her writing is brilliant and she has a really interesting perspective. Rebecca Kavanaugh's a public defender in New York City. Often disagree with her on some topics, but really good perspective. It's really important to read people you disagree with if they write well. If they explain themselves well, if they make reasonable sense, even if you disagree with them, it's really important and valuable to read that. And you just don't get that from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Economist anymore. You used to get that and you don't. It's a massive failing of the mainstream media. So go on Substack. Look, I mean, I don't know how you find people on Substack, but go on Twitter, look around, you know, find people you disagree with who write well. And it makes your, even if you disagree with them in the end, it makes you better at explaining your position. So Melody says YouTube pulled Dan O'Dowd's FSD video. Even Google thinks Dan O'Clown is a liar and a joke. I haven't seen that they pulled it down. I don't know why they did. I think his videos are badly misleading. And it may be that, I mean, because it's so obvious that FSD Beta's got 100,000 people driving it and no children have been hit. And he's like he's making these videos suggesting that FSD Beta kills children. And it's grossly offensive. And it's bizarre that they took down, Omar did a video with Alvi and I forget the other guy's name, where they had kids walking in the street. The car didn't come close to them. There was somebody with his foot over the brake pedal ready to stop. And YouTube decided that was dangerous and inappropriate. Just ridiculous. So, I saw William Shatner's hit piece on Elon. William Shatner's hit piece on Elon was meant to be funny. Honestly, it wasn't that funny. If you follow Elon closely, that's the saddest thing, is that it just wasn't that funny. It ended up being a hit piece and not funny and pretty disappointing. I thought it might be good and it just wasn't. And I guess William Shatner's not going to get a ride on a Falcon 9 into space now. He's not going to get to ride Crew Dragon. He got to ride on Bezos's little rocket. He won't get to ride on Elon's big rocket. So, all right. So these are YouTube questions. Mark Plott is a moderator. He is a moderator on the chat right now. He's a consistent and great moderator. He's a little more aggressive than I might be, but I'm okay with it because Mark is very consistent. So thank you, Mark, for moderating. So Mark asks, so I had a what-if dream about Tesla in 2019. In the dream, Tesla was using 4680 cells in the Model S and performance models. 4680 cells were overheating but not causing vehicle fires. It affected vehicles' range and performance, lowered to protect batteries, and Tesla stock dropped to an all-time low. So I think the key here, and I don't remember what I wrote in my reply, Mark, the key here is that Tesla is really good at managing these things. So if something doesn't turn out well, I've got a video coming up. Those of us inside the Tesla community, the Tesla Twitter, Tesla YouTube community, a lot of us placed a lot of weight on the importance of the 4680 cell. And I think the 4680 cell really does matter in the long term, but the 2170 cells matter. The 1865 cells matter. The lithium iron phosphate prismatic cells matter. Tesla is doing way better than anyone else at managing the mix of batteries that are available. So if one particular cell doesn't perform as well as they hoped, you just switch to a different cell. I think the volume of the way they're shifting around lithium iron phosphate taking over Megapack, meaning that they're not using 2170s and 1865s in Megapack. Probably the same thing will happen in Powerwall. Frees up a lot of batteries to go into Model 3 and Model Y and Model S and Model X. And if those cells are going into 3 and Y and S and X, and if 4680 doesn't add that much value, in particular to Model Y, which there is a production plan for Model Y with 4680, if 4680 doesn't add that much value compared to 2170 and Model Y, then take the 4680s and put them in Cybertruck and put them in Semi where they really matter, and Roadster where they really matter. But and we can see it, there's been this decision to move Semi up. Semi was not supposed to be until next year, and they moved it up to this year because I think they have enough 4680s. And I think, and I don't know this, I think Tesla has decided we're not going to make 4680 Model Ys in significant volume right now, because they can make Model Ys in volume with 2170s and not worry about the 4680s. Shift the 4680s over to Tesla Semi. I just was on Clubhouse yesterday. There's a guy, Alex, who drives as a test driver for Tesla Semi, says the thing is fantastic, best Semi on the road. They've got some work to do to get it ready to go, but I think in the next few months we're going to see Tesla Semi delivered and start doing payloads, and that's going to be a game changer for the world of commercial transport. And we're going to see that ramp, and then we're going to see Cybertruck ramp. Once 4680s ramp, we're going to see Cybertruck ramping, and Cybertruck is going to be a game changer for pickups. So I think that addresses your point. If something goes wrong with 4680, there's a lot of other batteries out there, but really anything like that is just an engineering problem. And when they figure out there's something that's not working right, they just re-engineer it. It's iterative engineering. The Tesla team is looking at what's going on with anything that they're doing and figuring out how can we do this better? How can we make this work better? How can we make this line run faster? Structural pack does require 4680s, yes, but the 2170 Model Y that they're making in Texas, which I believe is still using front and rear castings, structural pack makes it better, but it's not that much better. The 2170 Model Y is really good. Look, the Model S Plaid is using 1865 cells. That's the oldest generation of cells, and it's the fastest car on the road. And my Model X Plaid uses 1865 cells, and it's the second or third fastest car on the road. There's a Ferrari that sneaks into number 2, I think. A $750,000 Ferrari sneaks ahead of my $135,000, $150,000 Model X. The 1865s are great. The 2170s are great. The 4680s with structural pack are an improvement, and they need to work on their iterative engineering to get the 4680s to have higher energy density and to get the structural pack to add more value. So that's coming, but until they ramp 4680 in really high volumes, it's not necessary. Take the 4680s you make, put them in Semi, put them in Cybertruck. I know, the nose touches. Sorry about that. Okay. 340 WBY Mag says, I don't have any concerns about Tesla falling on hard times anytime in the near future. Next decade is going to be more than amazing. Think about Tesla becoming so huge and powerful that it is forced. I've talked about this before. I want to address this. Worried about Tesla becoming so huge and powerful that it is forced to break up into several smaller companies. That is not a worry, but just a thought. It's easy for me to see Tesla growing to such a size in the next decade. So I agree with this sentiment that there is a real risk that at some point the US government or the European governments will use their antitrust powers or the equivalent in Europe, and they will break up Tesla as being too big and powerful. And my gut hunch is that Tesla will see that coming, and it will split itself up in advance. Tesla Europe can be its own company. Tesla China can be its own company. Tesla North America can be its own company. Tesla Energy can be split up as a separate company. Tesla robotaxi. When Tesla has its own robotaxi fleet, Tesla's own robotaxi fleet can be split up as a separate company. Tesla can create utilities, take its own megapack farms and its own solar farms and spin that off as a separate entity. I think if there's any hint that, and we've seen less government antitrust efforts to control large companies in the recent past, but that is a real threat, and I think I just give the Tesla team credit that they'll see that coming and they'll split the company up on their own if it comes up. But I do think, and I've often said this, governments are the greatest threat, not just to Tesla, to us, right? Tesla is working to make a better future. Between great cars that are fun to drive and super efficient and save us money, to reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, to making cars safer, to making transportation safer, so many different ways, to making transportation more accessible. You think about seniors and others with disabilities being able to summon a robotaxi at much lower cost than Uber. So many great things that are happening with Tesla and SpaceX doing great things, Neuralink and Boring Company. Boring Company is going to be huge. People have no idea how big Boring Company is going to be. So governments are the greatest threat, because governments, if you're delivering goods to people and making life better for people, and you're making government look bad. And not just the US government, the Chinese government. People talk about China all the time. Sure, the Chinese government's a threat, state governments are threats, European governments are threats. Why would you want a Bible psycho for president? I don't know who the Bible psycho is. I don't know any Bible psychos. Then Mr. Swinajan says, what if China war? Oh, thank you, Kathy. That's very, very nice. Thank you very much. Is that my Kathy? Is that Kathy from Irvine, California? Thank you so much. Very, very much appreciated, Kathy. Senator Wenajan says, what if China war with Taiwan is the biggest risk to Texas and Shanghai? Let's be clear about this. If China goes to war with Shanghai, with Taiwan, if China goes to war with Taiwan, that's a big problem for everybody. If we end up, look, the what if scenarios that I addressed, like it's basically like, what if there's a global thermonuclear war? What will happen to my Tesla stock? If your main concern about a nuclear war is the effect on your Tesla stock, I think you're missing the real danger of a nuclear war. Is you might die, your children might die, your grandchildren might die, humanity might be extinguished. We might go extinct. We're already at risk of extinction from a variety of ways, but China invading Taiwan and the United States deciding that's it and starting to nuke China, and China nukes us back. That's unfortunately a realistic scenario. I hope it's a very low probability scenario. I do not think China is going to invade Taiwan anytime soon. I think this is one of those things that I think people don't get about China, and I feel the same way about Russia. I don't think they're led by good people. I want to start with that. I don't think that they're benignly motivated for the world or for their people. Just to be clear. I don't think they want to die either. And I think they know in a nuclear war they die too. I don't think Putin is a good guy, but I think his behavior is predictable, and the people who lead... My main concern is, look, I don't vote in China. I don't have any control over who runs China. I don't have any control over who runs Russia. In theory, I have some control over who runs the United States. I have some say in what happens here. And I think the people who run our country are idiots. And I think the idea that they didn't, and the Western Europe as well, that they didn't anticipate the problems with natural gas if you end up in a conflict with Russia and Russia decides not to sell you gas. You probably should see that coming. And there's evil and there's stupid. Now, I think there's a good argument that Vladimir Putin is evil. There's a good argument that the people who run China are evil. I'm not convinced that evil is the right word for it, but there's certainly a good argument for those guys. I think the people who run Washington, D.C. are evil also, but what's really scary about it is not only are they evil, but they're stupid. There's like smart evil and there's stupid evil, and smart evil doesn't want to die in a nuclear war. Stupid evil doesn't realize that they might get us in a nuclear war and destroy everything. And I think, and I don't mean Biden in particular. I mean, I would apply this to Trump. I would apply this to the people who run, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the leadership in Congress on both parties. There's a lot of stupid up there and there's a lot of evil up there. And this is bad. So, but I don't think that China is going, my read on the Chinese leadership, and I'm not a China expert. I'm not, I haven't studied it, but my seat of the pants analysis of the Chinese leadership is they play the long game. Yes, they do aim to take over Taiwan eventually, but they're not in a hurry. They don't need to take it over tomorrow. Now, look, I'm wrong about a lot of things. I could be wrong about this. They're playing a long game, and if you look at China's behavior over the last 30 years, I said this in my last video, I get all these reactions. I said, look, the United States has troops in 170. The United States has troops in 170, over 170 countries. Last count I saw was 177. We're bombing like 8 countries. We invade countries. Now, you can argue, oh, that's not really an invasion. Yeah, we invaded Iraq. We invaded Afghanistan. We invaded Syria. We invaded Grenada. We invaded Panama. We've invaded a lot of countries over the last however many years. I don't remember if we invaded the Philippines. I don't know what the count is. I don't know if we've invaded 5 countries in the last 30 years, 10 countries, 20 countries, 30 countries. We've invaded a fair number of countries in the last 30 years. And you could say, well, we were invited in by these people. Yeah. We invaded. We have troops everywhere. China doesn't play like us. Okay? I'm not saying, step aside from whether I think we're wrong. I think our foreign policy is wrong for us. I don't think it's terribly moral either on a global sense, but I don't think it's good for the American people to spend all this money dropping bombs all over the world, making people hate us and all this stuff. I don't think that's a good thing, but I don't want to have that policy argument. We can do that on locals later. China doesn't play the same way. China's approach is what's commonly referred to as soft power. And that's the game that they play. And, and friends of mine describe it as a sinister thing, and I don't have an opinion about whether it's I think the idea is basically they send people into countries and they get involved in the country's economy and they buy influence in that country. And frankly, they're doing it here. There's a strong argument that one of the major parties has been bought by the Chinese. Maybe both. I think it might be both. And certainly, the Saudis have used soft power to get control over. I think that certain countries, people often pick on Israel. I mean, Israel doesn't have a lot of money. The Saudis have money. The Chinese have money. The Chinese are buying the U.S. government. The Chinese are buying other governments. Why would they bother invading Taiwan when they can just buy it? Right? I mean, ultimately, I think Taiwan is probably better at resisting China's soft power, but it just takes time. They're just taking their time, and they're going to infiltrate the Chinese, the Taiwanese society. They'll get their people in. They'll figure it out. They don't need to drop bombs and risk a nuclear war to get what they want. So that's my take on it. Jim is a longtime follower, and Jim and I talk a lot. Jim says, look at Belt and Road and you'll change your mind about occupation. Look, Jim, you're in the chat. Tell me a country that China has invaded in the last 30 years. It hasn't happened. They have some kind of border conflict with India. It's not an invasion. Something happened in Vietnam was more than 30 years ago. No. So I definitely agree that if there is a conflict between China and Taiwan or China and the US, massive, massive bad effects, not just for Tesla, but for the world. Massive, massive bad effects. This is one of those nightmare what-if scenarios. If China ends up in a conflict, and China is a big part of our supply chain, not just Tesla, all the car companies, all the companies, even like everything we do, China's a big part of the supply chain. They're the largest economy in the world. So, Howard, my answer to your question is no. I don't think Tesla will have reached a significant proportion of its potential by 2024. I do think that the stock will go up by 2024, but I don't like making short-term predictions. See, Mark Plot, I love Mark. Mark, this is the kind of thing people say. China invaded Japan's seas. That's not an invasion. That's just not an invasion. Come on. An invasion is when you send troops in, you got soldiers on the boots on the ground. This is not an invasion. There is a dispute over who controls the seas in this area or that area, and China, I don't know, built up a fake island somewhere and put a flag on it, and somehow that's an invasion. That's not an invasion. An invasion is when you roll a bunch of tanks in and you drop a bunch of bombs and you take territory. So, all right, let's move on. I got some specific what-if questions on YouTube comments on my last video. The what-if scenario from Macro S is when the United States military closes Tesla once Optimus is shown, they won't allow it. So I definitely think there's a risk. Government, again, this is a government risk again. It's not just military. It's a government risk that if Tesla's technology becomes so good that it poses a threat to those in power, which I don't see Optimus doing Optimus as Tesla bot. I don't see Optimus being a threat to those in power. I think Optimus just makes economies run better. And I should be clear, when I say that the people at the top of China and Russia are evil or whatever, United States, whatever, I fundamentally view governments, their view is their main job is to steal money from the people. Thank you, Daniel. Their main agenda is to steal as much money from their people as possible. So 30, 40 years ago, Deng Xiaoping figured out, we can steal from our people, but if they don't have anything, there's not much we can steal. So the Chinese embraced capitalism because they figured out, if we have capitalism, then the people will have a lot more money and we can steal a lot more from them. So being the leader of a country that is very successful economically makes you a lot more powerful, and you can steal a lot more money from your people, and you can give more benefits to your friends and family if you have a thriving economy. So I don't think Russia's figured that out. Putin hasn't figured out he could steal a lot more money from his people if his economy was thriving. But the Chinese figured that out 30, 40 years ago, and their economy's grown, and they are the largest economy in the world. And I think so far, there's some hints that they're missing that. I think the leadership of the United States, and I'm this is bipartisan in my opinion, they haven't figured out, you want a growing economy, you got to stop wasting money, you got to stop printing money, you got to stop dropping bombs all over the place, you got to focus on making the economy better. Oh, Tom asks, Warren, do you believe in conspiracy theories? It sounds like that. I believe that conspiracy is a real world, and there are real conspiracies in the world. And if you don't believe in conspiracy theories at all, Google Operation Northwoods and Operation Gladio. Operation Northwoods and Operation Gladio. That's the tip of the iceberg. There are real conspiracies. There are small. I generally don't believe in large conspiracies of evil geniuses. I generally like the Bilderberg, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab stuff. I generally don't believe in these large conspiracies of evil geniuses taking over the world. I do believe in large numbers of small-scale conspiracies of not particularly bright people. And maybe occasionally there's a particularly large-scale intelligent people conspiracy. Is it property? Rory Potter, is it property to eat chili before going on dates? Why do I keep seeing that? That's hilarious. I did have chili today, but I don't have a date. So everything is a conspiracy theory until it's true. So there's no question that Operation Northwoods and Operation Northwoods was a plan put forward by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to commit terrorist attacks against people in America, blame them on Cuba, and justify an invasion of Cuba. And JFK didn't sign off on it. But this was the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This was not, it didn't happen, but it was a plan. And Operation Gladio is a very similar scheme that happened in Europe that really was what Operation Northwoods purported to be. And it really happened, and they killed innocent people for decades. Those aren't conspiracy theories. Those are conspiracy. I mean, they are conspiracy theories. They're also true. So, all right, let's see. So, all right, let me move on. So I do think that there's some risk that Tesla or SpaceX or Neuralink or Boring Company, probably not Boring Company, Tesla, SpaceX, or Neuralink, cracks some technological advantage that radically empowers people and shifts power away from the governments. And some governments might react poorly to that. Daniel Moser says, average Americans have no idea how often we break international laws in territorial waters. It's not only that, Daniel, they don't care. They don't care that we do these things. They don't. If you have this fundamental belief that we're the good guys and everybody else is the bad guys, then anything you do is okay. And that's what fundamentally a lot of Americans believe, is we're the good guys. And I believe we as a people are good people. I also believe that the Chinese people are good people, that the Russian people are good people, the Ukrainian people are good people. Most people in most countries, the people in general in most countries are good people. I have no beef with the average person in China, the average person in Russia, the average person in Mexico, whatever. The people who run countries are generally evil. They're generally evil. They're often stupid. Sometimes they're smart and sometimes they're good. But a lot of them there's a lot of bad history of people doing bad things. Steve Dowler says, and there's Russia operating a conspiracy to create conspiracies, or maybe it's McConnell. Actually, so here's my conspiracy theory. This is my out there conspiracy theory. Alex Jones is a CIA operative. And the CIA put Alex Jones up to creating so many conspiracy theories that we would get distracted from the actual we wouldn't be able to tell which ones are the credible conspiracy theories and which ones are the incredible ones, because Alex Jones told so many stories that you lose track. It's like signal to noise ratio. He increased the noise on conspiracies. So there's so many fake conspiracies that Alex Jones talks about that we miss the real ones. That's my theory. That's my big conspiracy theory. And no, I don't believe it. I think there's a chance it's true. So, are the Russians conspire? Look, yes, I think the Russians conspire to do things to the United States or conspire to spy on the United States. I think the Chinese do that, and we do that too. Our government does that in other countries, and our government does it in our own country. Oh, come on, Alexandra. You know that's a funny one. That's a funny one. Come on. Alex Jones is a CIA operative. You can't get funnier than that. Okay, maybe you can get funnier than that, but it's funny for me. Okay, Paul says, what if a startup discovers a new energy source besides battery that is dirt cheap and weighs less with comparable recharging speed as gassing internal combustion engine vehicles? So, I don't really understand what Paul is suggesting here. I think there's different ways of looking at this. One is somebody comes up with new battery technology that's better than what Tesla has or anybody else has. So if there's some new battery tech, solid state or whatever, somebody actually nails solid state and produces it at scale. Whatever new tech or electric generating technology you come up with, Tesla's going to be the biggest customer. If you come up with some brilliant solution to a problem, Tesla is the most efficient producer of electric vehicles and electric transportation and getting away from fossil fuels. So if you have an edge, Tesla has the engineering team to say, hey, we want to buy that, like dry battery electrode, right? Maxwell was developing dry battery electrode. Tesla said, hey, let's acquire that. Let's make that work. Let's really pile a lot of engineering resources into making that work. So if somebody comes up with some tech that makes vehicles work better, Tesla's team will say, hey, let's get on that. Either they'll copy it or they'll acquire it or they'll work with them and become their customers. I don't think that's really a problem. Let me just deal with King Carlo. Don't forget to answer anything you might know about the upcoming Tesla legal team bill before you sign out. So let's address the Tesla legal. I have not heard anything about the Tesla legal team making progress. I think that the potential is there for the Tesla legal team to sue. They can't sue somebody who slanders Elon because he's a public figure and it's really hard to prove what you need to prove to justify that kind of lawsuit. And the Tesla legal team isn't going to sue on Elon's behalf. But if somebody engages commercial defamation against Tesla, and Tesla is able to show that there's a material impact on the company, which is a big hurdle because Tesla doesn't have a demand problem. So if somebody does something that impairs demand, but it's a small impact on demand and it doesn't last, Tesla has basically infinite demand. It's not really a huge issue. So there's going to have to, at some point, somebody's going to say something about Tesla that is clearly false. I mean, Dan O'Dowd is pushing it, right? Dan O'Dowd is pretty clearly pushing the line. And I think there's a really strong chance that Tesla might sue Dan O'Dowd. And, one of the key distinctions about Dan O'Dowd is, you don't want to sue people who don't have money because number one, you look like a bully. And number two, you don't get anything out of it when you get the end because they don't have any money. So you can sue somebody like Dan O'Dowd and he does have money and you can take some money out of his pocket and that'll make him think. I think the big one is journalists, is somebody like Business Insider, which does a stream of hit pieces against Tesla, or Bloomberg, which does a stream of hit pieces against Tesla. If they cross the wrong line, and the Tesla legal team is probably watching for this, there's certain lines that you can cross where you've gone into commercial defamation, you've opened yourself up to a lawsuit, and you could see Tesla owning Bloomberg. You could see Tesla owning Business Insider. I think there's a chance that something like that happens. Definitely. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think there's a chance it happens. But it's hard to establish that. It's hard to make a defamation claim. I could see it happening in another country. I think defamation laws are more favorable to the person defamed in Britain than they are in the US. So, or maybe in China. So I think we could see something like that happening. Okay. So this, let me get back to this point about some new energy source, or let's say it's a new battery tech. You can come up with great tech. If you can't manufacture it at scale, it doesn't matter. Drew Baglino talked about this. I think Elon's talked about this. Whatever your innovation is, maybe it's, QuantumScape's solid state batteries, whatever. You have to be able to manufacture it at scale, and you have to be able to make it at low cost. This is a key distinction I think people don't get about today's battery situation. And I think Elon or Drew said this already. Definitely heard Drew say this at his talk at Stanford. Current battery technology is good enough. If there is no development in battery technology, if energy density does not increase, if we're stuck with lithium iron phosphate and nickel-based cells that we have, we're still going to transition the entire globe to sustainable energy. We're still going to get off fossil fuels with just that. We just need to scale production of lithium iron phosphate for energy storage, and we need to scale lithium iron phosphate and nickel-based technologies for cars, for transportation. It's good enough for almost everything that we need. It's not good enough for airplanes, but I think airplanes are going to become irrelevant with the Boring Company. Kathy K says AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, are decreasing lab to market timelines. Yeah, but you still need to manufacture in volume. This is Drew Baglino's point. It's actually more important to increase, like, instead of coming up with some new battery tech, some new solid state battery, way more important is increase production of lithium, increase production of nickel, increase mining of lithium and nickel, increase refining of lithium and nickel, getting that stuff on board. The 4680 cell, the 2170, the 1865. Look, Teslas are already the best cars on the road, and they use 1865s and 2170s and 4680s and lithium iron phosphate. They use existing battery tech, and they're already the best cars on the road. So you don't need better battery tech. You don't need some new energy source to be better than fossil fuels. We're already better than fossil fuels. It's just scaling. It's just getting up to scale. Okay. So Bar Score says, why not use better magnets so you can make lighter and stronger motors? I think the motors are already good enough. I mean, look at the cars that Tesla. There may be some tech out there that Tesla's going to iteratively improve their motors. They're going to iteratively improve their efficiency. They're going to make constant improvements in a lot of ways, and there's going to be some game-changing improvements. I think we're going to see game-changing improvements with Cybertruck. I think when we see structural pack scale, we're going to see game-changing improvements there. But we're already there. It's not about new technology. It's about manufacturing at scale. I do think we're going to see new tech. But it has to be able to scale. So that's the distinction. I think people, and I think Gareth sort of talks about this. It has to be cheap and it has to scale. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are cheap, and they're trending down over the long haul. Right now they're a little more expensive because demand got so high, but fundamentally iron is abundant. And nickel and lithium are abundant, and once they're mined at quantity, that's going to be abundant, and the cost of batteries is going to come down, but it's already low enough. It's already competitive. So, all right, let's go to the next one. What if lithium production capacity isn't capable of keeping up with car and battery demand? This is a big issue. I think we're going to see that in Master Plan Part 2 or Part 3. I think Elon's going to address this. Lithium appears to be the big bottleneck. Not lithium mining is not the immediate bottleneck, as lithium refining is the immediate bottleneck. But both of those are huge. So those are going to come. It's going to come with time. We're going to see. It's again, this is where governments are a threat. In order to get the lithium out of the ground, you got to get mining permits. In order to get lithium refined, you got to get your factories up and running, and governments get in the way. I have a feeling that Elon's master plan is going to be he's going to start partnering with. I think Elon is going to start partnering with politicians to say, hey, we need to get these things. If you really believe in ending climate change and addressing climate change, you need to get these barriers out of the way. And I think that may be part of Elon's plan, or maybe it's this lithium clays to using salt to take lithium clays and producing lithium out of it. I don't know exactly what it is, but something's got to come up. Neil Evangelista says, do you know anything about this new motor that a kid in Fort Pierce came up with? I haven't seen that, no. And again, it's not about... Somebody can come up with a cool motor. Can they manufacture it at scale? Somebody can come up with a new product, a new battery, whatever. Can you make it at scale? Can you make it low cost? That's the hurdle. All right, so that addresses that one. Then what if Zehan's arguments come true? Demographics show some pretty serious declines. The Americans don't want to protect supply lines. Major food shortages shaping up. We've seen just seen Tesla's not immune from macro market events. Seems we'll need to count on the North America plants, North America mining and refining. We also know that supply chains are a thing. Could they get worse? So this is this kind of issue is not a Tesla problem. This is a societal problem. These are big issues that demographics is a serious issue. If you haven't had more than 2 kids yet, you should have more than 2 kids. I have 2. I'm working on having more than 2. I want to have 2 or 3 more. Humanity is facing extinction, and in the long term, it's extinction. In 10, 20 generations, we're facing extinction. In 3 generations, we're facing 2 or 3 generations. We're facing pretty bad scenarios economically when there's large numbers of people in adult diapers and not enough people working to solve problems. The reason that we have Elon Musk is because society produced a lot of people. We had a lot of babies, and some of them turned out to be really good babies. And we need more Elons, and the way we get more Elons is having more kids. And there is no the notion that there's overpopulation in the world is not true. But anyway, this what if this isn't just a Tesla problem? And I would say this, and I said this down here, in globally bad scenarios, Tesla still outperforms other investments. Tesla's team is going to react better to whatever the scenario is. Now, I think that these Zehan arguments are 20, 30 year plus problems. They're not 5 or 10 year problems. By and large, they're not going to, Japan's population has started to decline, but you're not going to see steep declines for a while. South Korea's population is going to decline severely. But I think it's going to take a while before those really hit hard. And hopefully, Michael, yes, I did claim that Boring Company will make flying obsolete. Yes, Hyperloop and regional loops. Let me address this question. Imagine Boring Company tunnel from Atlanta to Orlando, from Miami to Orlando. So people want to go to Disney. You can take a Boring Company tunnel, 150 miles an hour. From Miami, it's a little more than an hour. Maybe it's an hour. From Atlanta, maybe it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. Just not even Hyperloop, just a 150 mile an hour Tesla in a tunnel. Now compare that to flying. Like, are you going to fly from Atlanta to Orlando? I mean, these are short flights, and a lot of people don't drive anyway, but you've just wiped out. I mean, it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be faster, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be safer, it's going to be less hassle. Any trip that you can do in, let's say, 300 miles or even a little bit more than 300 miles, the time it takes you to go to the airport, the flight, the getting out of the airport, when you add it all up, you're already over 2 hours. So anything that you can do in 2 hours in a Boring Company tunnel that's not even a Hyperloop is going to be better. So that wipes out short-haul air travel. Long-haul air travel is wiped out by Hyperloop. Hyperloop is going to be going faster than planes. It's going to be safer than planes. It's going to be more convenient than planes. So Hyperloop's going to wipe that out. And then you've got Boring Bearing, which I think ultimately Boring Company will bore tunnels under the Bering Strait, connecting Asia to North America, and a spur along the Arctic Circle will hit Northern Europe, and ultimately 80+% of the world's population will be connected by Hyperloop and by cargo tunnels as well. And that's going to change. That's a game changer. So I think that was it. So let me look in the chat here. I hope I'm dead before I'm in diapers. You blocked me quick enough. I don't remember blocking you. The super rich will eat steak and chicken while the little people will eat bug-infused soy products. I think that if I'm hopeful that Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods will deliver plant-based meats that will be worthy. I just bought bacon. I bought beef yesterday and bacon today at the store, not Beyond. But I do think in the long haul, Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods will get there. It's just, or lab-based meat will get there. It's just going to take time. Jim Manley says over-under population is a regional issue. Africa will have 5 cities near 80 million each within 30 years, not edge, so net sync. So I think I think Nigeria will be the largest country in the world in terms of population in the future. But I think over time, the African countries, their birth rates will come down too. Diovan Moet, we have a huge problem. These new hybrids, 10x less battery capacity, more range, and they still get a tax break. How much of an issue is this going to be for Tesla in the next 10 years? I don't think the hybrids are a big issue because fundamentally they're not as good. They're not as good as Teslas. I think that they're probably better than normal gas cars, so it's not a bad thing. But practically speaking, would you rather have a Tesla or a hybrid? I'd rather have a Tesla all day long. So I don't think it's going to matter, and I do think that it's a mistake for them to give them these tax breaks. But Governments do what governments do. So let's see. Inflation Reduction Act encourages more manufacturing, sourcing, and all the way back to mining. I haven't seen that, Kathy. Kathy, if you would email me a link to explain, don't put it in the chat. Email me a link or text me a link to give me a link to something explaining how the Inflation Reduction Act encourages more manufacturing, sourcing, and mining. I'm not convinced that it will. I know there's something in the tax credit that has some impact on it, but I don't think it's enough. Today's batteries are fine with range, which is fence sitters' number one fear. Long charging time is number two, and buffered battery stations can fix that one. I think we're going to see better range over time with some incremental improvements in 4680 and 2170 and structural pack. We'll get somewhat better range. But I honestly think that for the vast majority of drivers, the range is not an issue. The vast majority of people, very few people drive more than 200 miles a day on a regular basis. So if your daily commute is less than 200 miles, then you get home and you plug in and you don't have a problem. So how often do you need to supercharge? I go on longer trips and I have to supercharge and I don't find it that much of a burden. So I don't get it. CM says FSD goes up in price to $15,000. I guess almost nobody will buy it. How is that in Tesla's interest? I think a lot of people are going to buy it. If it's amazing, if it goes into wide release and it really works well, then I think a lot of people will buy it. I don't know why you don't want a car that drives itself. I do. Battery materials will be mined from used batteries eventually. Yes. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Wait until government bureaucratic BS starts regulating tunnels. $1 billion to start lithium mining with no guarantee of approval. My experience so far, my knowledge so far is that local governments love the Boring Company and they're moving bureaucratic hurdles out of the way to get Boring Company tunnel systems in their cities. You're going to see a lot of Boring Company tunnel systems fast. It's going to take another 6 months to a year before that train starts rolling, but once that train starts rolling, it's going to be amazing. Do I think Tesla bot will promote our demise as the bot will do work for us, so we need less people? Stephen, thank you for the question. I think that technology frees people to add to more value, away from boring, mundane tasks, to free people up to do more higher value added tasks. So unlike Elon, I don't think bots will replace people. I think bots will take over tasks we don't want to do and free humans up to do more. Autonomous semis will greatly reduce inflation due to lower cost of shipping. They'll have a small impact. I don't think they're going to have that much of an impact, but it will help. If FSD stays with the car, when you sell the car, you have to buy it a second time. That's why people won't buy it. No. Look, when you sell the car, you sell it to someone who's willing to pay to have FSD, and you get the value back there. I don't understand why people don't get this. When you sell the car in a private party transaction on whatever, if it's worth $12,000 or $15,000, then people will pay more for it. I mean, I bought my Model 3 from Omar, and I paid more for it because it had FSD. Thank you, Michael. I think I have a good imagination. What about a butch case? I don't know what a butch case is. Is that a lesbian thing? What is that? Tesla raised the price of FSD to how much of an earnings per share impact could... so FSD at $15,000 to me is not the big impact on Tesla's earnings in the future. The big impact is when they go to robotaxi. I think that... I don't know what the take rate is on FSD, but as FSD gets better, I think people are more willing to sign up for it. So it has some impact. I don't know how big it is. Do I think FSD will increase in a few years above $199 a month? I think FSD subscription will increase in a few months above $199 a month. I did not have a date. Thank you for asking, Matt. Let's see. Mark Plot says boring loop displaces trains. It displaces trains, it displaces mass transit, and it displaces regional air travel as well. Yeah, Jim Manley, I agree with you about hybrids. There's something in France called the TGV. It's been there for 30 years, and it's faster and more efficient than the Hyperloop. No, it's not fast. First of all, the Hyperloop doesn't exist yet, so you can't be faster than Hyperloop. I've ridden the TGV. It's the Train de Grande Vitesse, or Train de Grande Vitesse. It's the train of great speed in France. It's brilliant. I've ridden the Shinkansen, the bullet train in Japan. which stands for New Trunk Line, by the way. It doesn't stand for bullet train. Shinkansen. And they're wonderful trains, but they are generally less than 200 miles an hour. Hyperloop's going to be 1,000 miles an hour. So if you don't understand what Hyperloop is, you probably shouldn't comment on it. Hyperloop is going to be faster than the speed of sound. It's going to be in a vacuum tunnel. It's going to be insane. But it's a ways off. I still think Japan for new factory? Yes, I do think. That's my bet. My bet is still on Giga Osaka. All right, let's see. Any news on Surrogate? I'm not there yet. I'm still. I hired a new matchmaking service, so I'm spending money on a matchmaking service first. I still want to do it the traditional way, if we can call it that. How much do I think FSD will cost per month in 2030? Oh, it's going to be outrageously expensive. You're not going to be able to subscribe to FSD in 2030. You'll have to buy it, I think. Buffett keeps buying Oxy stocks. Any impact on EV market and Tesla negative? I don't know what Oxy stocks are. I'm not selling the car. I'm not selling the Model 3. I'm not selling the Model 3. I'm not selling the Model 3. My kid drives the Model 3, and I'm going to sell the X Plaid before I sell the 3, for sure. I expect to have a Cybertruck and the 3. So, all right, let's see. All right, so I think we're about an hour now. I'm just looking to see if there's any other... just really quick, if you have what-if questions, like what if something happens for Tesla, please put those in the chat. I'm going to look at your other questions here. FSD take rate is about 14% in the US and 7% worldwide, so it'll go down at least purchase-wise. I don't know if it's going to go down. If it's better, it might go up. When people see these autonomous semis on the road operating, their minds are going to be blown. Semis won't be autonomous for a while. U.S. military testing Starlink. Yeah, I gotta cancel my Starlink account because I'm not going to need it. It looks like. I'll give you $3 million for your Model 3. I'll sell it for $3 million. Sure. Import the future wife. Stop wasting time in the U.S. I'm not wasting time. I think it's reasonable for me to take another year. I have considered traveling to Japan in particular to look for a wife, but I think I'm going to find somebody here. Tesla bot for a wife. Hyperloop can't be faster than the speed of sound because it cannot break the sound barrier inside the tunnel. If you vacuum out the tunnel, it will travel faster than the speed of sound in normal air. It won't break the speed of sound inside the tunnel because the tunnel will be in a vacuum and the speed of sound will be different inside the tunnel. But it will travel faster than 700 miles an hour inside the tunnel. Will Tesla merge with SpaceX and Neuralink? No. There is no reason for Tesla to merge with SpaceX and Neuralink or Boring Company. Their companies are all running fine on their own. That doesn't add anything. Jim Whitehead says you might want to check out Marnie's Wing Girl method. I have watched some Marnie videos. I've watched lots of dating videos. There's lots of ideas there about dating. Fundamentally, the one fundamental principle I've seen about dating is improve yourself, make yourself a better person, and then you will be more attractive to people that you want. So I am working on myself. If you watched my Twitter this morning, I was at the gym. I've been going to the gym. I am now living in a more attractive place. I have more money. I'm more productive. I like to think there's a lot of reasons that a woman at some point will choose to be with me, but I'm giving it another year, and at the end of the year, I'm going to start with a surrogate. Sentient asked about the matchmaking service. It's called Vita Select. I used Talkify before, Tawkify, and I thought it was okay, but I think I exhausted their pool. My dating desires are hard because I'm looking for someone under 35 because I want someone who's fertile. And I'm 56, and some women apparently under 35 are reluctant to date a 56-year-old for some reason. Well, which vehicle better date bait, the X or the Cybertruck? Cybertruck is definitely better date bait. The Cybertruck will definitely help attract women. I'm confident of that. I think that, living on the beach condo, that's going to be attractive to women. There's all kinds of things, but I want to see Elon use the not a flamethrower on the Tesla bot to prove they aren't a threat to humans. I don't think we need to do that. Will Elon make more babies with Tesla bot? I don't think so. I think an interesting question there is, will AI be able to mate? Right now, humans mate. You get one person, another person, and they combine, and it creates a completely different mind. Is there some conceivable way in the future that if AI is emulating the neural nets in our brains, is there some way that you have one AI and another AI, and they could mate in some way? That would be interesting. What if living out of your car makes you more attracted to women? I don't think it does. Date two at once and not deny it and say the best girl wins. No, I'm not doing that. Well, first of all, you got to get one date before I can date two at the same time. Cisco Disco says, you love to Satan. Oh my God, wrong channel, adios. I live in Florida. I'm going to say this. Like, I try to stay apolitical, but I live in Florida. Florida has been the best place in the country to live in during the panic of the last 2+ years. And if you want to live in dystopian states with Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo and whatever, go for it. If you want to live in dystopias, that's fine. I like living in paradise, and I'm going to stay in it. And Ron DeSantis has been very good for Florida. So, and they know we're going to see. Look, there's a general election coming up, and I think Ron DeSantis is going to clobber the Democratic candidate. I'm very bad at political predictions, so I could be wrong. Gary Black says a 3K FSD price hike of 2 million units, assuming no degradation. Yeah, assuming no degradation in take rate's a great way of going for it. What is this? What did Scott say? New t-shirt, single Tesla and Air, sure. Will Elon go after Jeff and Amazon deliver packages? No. Tell the women that you're Jeff Bezos. Gavin Gruesome. I think this is a bigger problem than you think in the next 10 years. Battery materials are getting more scarce. This is kind of thing I wanted to talk about. Diovan, thank you. Battery materials are getting more scarce. Tesla needs 10x more per vehicle and they don't do marketing. This isn't about marketing. Battery materials are getting more scarce is a challenge, and I think Tesla is working on that. Narek says, is Boca Raton a good place to live? I think Boca Raton can be a good place to live, but I just left because I don't like it there anymore. So it depends on what you want. Good schools, the best public schools. If you still believe in public schools, Boca Raton has very good public schools. Not without flaws. They have problems. Cost of living is high. There's no good Chinese food in South Florida. But there's some good restaurants. There's some good people in Boca Raton. Yes. Very, very good if you're Jewish, by the way. It's funny how rich leftists have been leaving California in droves because they can't stand living in the workers' paradise. Yeah, it's crazy. There are talking cafes in Japan. Women pay money to talk to men. All right, send me a link, Mark. Send me a link. I have a dog, but my ex-wife got it in the divorce, and I don't want a dog. A dog like ties you down. I'm okay if a woman has a dog. Maybe I'll get a dog. I don't know. I don't think so, though. As they said on Seinfeld, if your dating strategy hasn't worked, then you need to do the exact opposite. Good thinking. What was that? Upgrade the mic? Upgraded the mic. Nice. This is my normal mic. I've been on the road using other mics. I'm prettier than Bezos. That's true. Women do like a guy with a dog. Yeah. Sentient. I'm in Satellite Beach, Florida, which is just south of Canaveral. Which north, it's if you go from Canaveral, Cape Canaveral down, there's Canaveral, Port Canaveral, there's Cocoa Beach, there's a Gap, Patrick Air Force Base, and then Satellite Beach. And I'm at the north end of Satellite Beach right now. I'll be in Satellite Beach for 3 months while I'm looking for a place. People conflate with creating a hardware product like a new battery technology with creating software and easily pushing out to thousands or millions. Hardware scaling is exponentially harder. Oh, people are always telling me to go to the Philippines. People are always telling me to go to Thailand. Some people tell me to go to Colombia, Mexico. I haven't given up on American women yet. American women, if you're out there, you want a successful guy who's got a beach condo and nice cars and a good person who cooks. I'm it. How much lithium does Tesla have to make? How many cars? I don't know the volume of lithium that's necessary. I know it's a lot. I think fundamentally, if you watch Drew Baglino's, I did a video about Drew Baglino's talk at Stanford. The existing industry that makes battery materials, that makes everything to make the electric vehicle world happen, wasn't created for electric vehicles. So we're sort of riding on a system that was created for other stuff. And Drew believes, and I think Elon believes, that they need to basically create whole new methods of getting the materials out of the ground or getting them from wherever. You know, if our battery system, the battery system was created for phones, cars use 1,000 times as much battery materials as phones. So you really need to scale that up. Yeah, this is Jim Whitehead. I knew a guy who went to Brazil, found a wild woman, wanted a green card. She got the card and dumped him for a richer guy. Yeah, I think finding a foreign woman is a recipe for a high-risk divorce. It's a much higher risk for divorce. Will being a sperm donor fulfill the Musk breeding mandate? Interesting theory. I want to raise kids. I don't just want to have kids or spread my genes. I actually enjoy raising children. I feel like I'm good at it. I think my kids turned out great. I had fun doing it. How many Tesla stocks before the split do you think needed for retirement in 2030? I don't understand that question. You know, your retirement needs might be different than mine. If you need to live in a 5-bedroom house for, you know, a $1 million house and you need to spend money on cocaine and on coke and hookers, then you need more money than I do. Chatterbait. Somebody's been watching too much of a PRON channels. Most American white women are so tougher and so strong with... I don't know. Look, I think there are good women anywhere and there are difficult women anywhere. And I personally think I have a decent chance of finding a good woman in America. And I'm going to go for that. And ultimately, if I was going to go to another country to find a woman, I would probably go to Japan because I speak Japanese and I like Japanese women. I'm not sure that a Japanese woman would be comfortable. I think this is the challenge, actually. I'm going to bring a woman to live with me near Canaveral. And that woman has to be comfortable here. And I don't know that a foreigner is going to be as comfortable here as an American. Solar and heating is important for the future, yes. All right, so we've been going for over an hour. I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm going to let it go. Thank you, particularly the moderators. Please support this channel on Locals, on Patreon, or on as a YouTube channel member. Links in the description below. Check out the t-shirts at elonbits.com. I'm not wearing one today because I worked out and I didn't change after working out, so you got worked out, Warren. Please subscribe to the channel, check out my other videos, and thank you so much for watching, and thanks again to the moderators.